You're listening to The Artist Athlete, show number 10, cowboy. Hello, friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast. This podcast is dedicated to circus. It's a resource for those working in the industry to share our stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into our world. Before we get into the interview today, I want to celebrate this particular episode for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Artist Athlete podcast has officially reached episodes in the double digits. It can get its ears pierced now. Or at least that was the rule in my house. I couldn't get my ears pierced till I turned double digits. But then I begged my mom a lot and got them pierced when I was 9. But anyway, the Artist Athlete podcast has 10 episodes. And I'm so proud of how this show has grown. And it really is because of you guys. Thank you for listening and rating the podcast, leaving reviews, telling your friends. My favorite thing is when a new episode comes out on Mondays and all of a sudden the Artist Athlete starts getting tagged in Instagram stories of people stretching or doing cardio or putting on show makeup. And you can hear the ridiculously epic intro music playing in the background. It just makes my heart sing. Shout out especially to Kara Russell in Florida. I met her when I was teaching workshops in Tampa, and she tags me in her Instagram story like every week. So thanks, Kara. You're awesome, and your cat is adorable. The second reason today's podcast is special is because it's my first Skype interview. That's right. Up until this point, all of my guests have been sitting right next to me. But in this interview, Doug Stewart and I were on a long-distance Skype call. And actually, we had to do the interview twice, because the first time, I didn't know what I was doing. Surprise, surprise. And the audio was so bad that I couldn't use it. So super special thanks to my guest today, Doug, for being so amazingly patient and being willing to be interviewed not once, but twice. Doug Stewart is a graduate of the New England Center for Circus Arts intensive program, doing aerial rope and straps. He has worked with Circus Smirkus, Diamond Family Circus, and the Midnight Circus. This spring, Doug graduated from Columbia College Chicago with a degree in Business of Live and Performing Arts. During his time in college, Doug created and now works as the executive director of his company, Cirque US. Now in its third year of operation, Cirque US tours New England with an original show each summer. This interview is full of insights on how Doug created and grew Cirque US in the past 3 years. And after the interview, I'm going to talk about how to apply some of his strategies to individual artists. So make sure to listen for that. Here's my interview with Doug Stewart. Doug Stewart, welcome to the Artist Athlete podcast again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Great.
Can you explain, kind of in your own words, who you are, what you do?
My name is Doug Stewart. I am a circus performer, and I am also the founder of a circus company called Cirque US.
Yes. And to clarify, that's CIRQUE space US. So it's like Cirque US. And when did you start performing?
I started performing when I was a little kid. My parents signed me up for theater camps and theater classes, so I'd been performing my whole life. And then I made the switch to circus when I was 10 years old. My parents saw that I was a hyperactive kid and I was climbing on everything. So they put me in a gymnastics class, and I couldn't follow the rules. I couldn't wait in line. I couldn't wait my turn. So there was actually a circus class happening in the same time as the gymnastics class. And I was like, that's the one for me. That's what I want to be a part of. So then I probably started performing circus when I turned 13, around that area.
Where are you from?
I am from Walpole, Massachusetts, which is a little suburb outside of Boston.
New England's got a lot of circus going on.
It does. It's really awesome.
Do you know why?
I don't know why. My guess would be that it has such a strong youth circus, and because of NECA, which is the New England Center for Circus Arts. They're really they're kind of a hub for circus in the United States. And I feel like a lot of people have gone on to NECA to do their training programs, then move back to Boston or spread out throughout New England and open up their own schools. And just over time, those schools have grown in popularity and have expanded and spread out. That's just my guess. I have no idea.
Or Circus Smirkus doesn't come from NECA.
No, Circus Smirkus was founded by Rob Merman in 1987,
Super old school.
1989. They're about to celebrate their 30th year, I think. Or they already did.
Yeah, I actually, this woman who is on a show that I helped kind of work backstage on in Australia, this Russian foot juggler was like, oh, I was at Circus Smirkus in like 1990 or something. She was
Wow.
like, yeah.
The circus world is so small.
Super small.
I actually found out today that one of my friends from school's cousins is a friend of one of my circus friends across the country, and we just realized that today. So
wait,
small.
map that out for me again. A friend.
So my roommate has a very good friend, and their cousin is one of my really good friends from circus school.
Oh, whoa!
We made that connection today. Yeah.
Your roommate's cousin is your really good friend.
Yes. Really weird. And we had no idea until today, and we've been living together for about a year.
You're 10 years old, you're super hyperactive, you're on stage at 13. What happens next?
Then I went to see Circus Smirkus tour with this performance group that I was a part of, and I saw Smirkus tour and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be a circus performer, and I want to perform in this kind of style of circus. And so then I started going to Smirkus camp when I was 13. I went every summer, and I'd go for the entire summer. I loved it. I loved being a part of that circus community. I loved everything I learned there. I spent all my teenage years auditioning for the Smirkus tour. When I was 18, I got in. It was my 5th audition for them, so I had auditioned 4 times and didn't get in. When I was 18, I went on tour with Circus Smirkus, and I absolutely fell in love with the touring lifestyle and the circus lifestyle and doing 2 shows a day and working in a tent and working with all your friends and really diving into the circus experience of traveling and really creating a show. And from there, I was like, this is what I want to do. And that's kind of what the inspiration for Cirque US stemmed from, was that experience that I had when I was 18. Then when I was 19, I went to the New England Center for Circus Arts. I joined their intensive training program, and I studied there for 10 months. I majored in aerial rope, and I minored in straps. And then during my time in high school and at NECA, I was auditioning for the National Circus Schools of Canada. I auditioned for a couple different circus programs in the United States, and I also was applying to colleges. And then at that point in my life, I kind of looked and said, oh, I could spend more time at circus school, or I could go to college and try to get a degree, and I could learn how to start my own circus company. So then in 2016, I went to Columbia College Chicago, where I study. I'm still there now. I'm graduating in 5 days, which is weird. I'm studying business of live and performing arts, and through that program, I really learned the back end and the business side of the entertainment industry. And through that, my freshman year, I started Cirque US. So I went to my friends that I toured with in Smirkus, and I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I want to get some people together. I want to write a show, and I want to take it on the road. Who's in? And I got 7 people who were as crazy enough to try it as I was. And we spent, I think, 2 weeks creating a show. We created a show in 12 days, and then we brought it on the road for 4 weeks. And then 3 years later, we're about to go on our 3rd tour.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So that first summer, you contacted 7 of your friends. And what was the creation process like that first year? You had 12 days, but surely, yeah. I can't imagine creating a whole show. How long is the show? Or how long was that show?
90-minute show. All of our shows we do are 90 minutes with no intermission.
Okay. So you had 12 days to create a 90-minute show.
Yeah. So that show, I think we formed our group in maybe December, and we announced our company, and we announced our tour in January. And then I think we started booking shows after we announced the cast, which was a really stressful booking process, having no show and no credibility and trying to book a tour. But we can talk about that after. But the group got together probably in January, and we probably had a group Skype call once a month. As we got closer, probably twice a month. And we talked about the show, everything we wanted, the acts we would have, different transitions. And then We created our show at the New England Center for Circus Arts in 12 days. It was a very intense process. A lot of the acts came in pre-made. Like, for example, that summer I did rope, so I came to the first day of training with my rope act specifically designed for that show already finished. So we had a bunch of puzzle pieces, and we were just plugging them order, seeing what worked best together. Then we spent a lot of that time creating like the opening act, transitions, writing clown material, and kind of waiting to put the final touches on things that you have to be in the like studio for. This summer we're bringing in some people with fully established acts that are complete, ready to go. They've been performing for years, and other acts we're combining people that already have acts and creating new acts.
How do you cast someone who doesn't have an act?
Good question. It depends on the skill set we have or the skill sets we need. For example, one of the clowns we have this year has a bunch of different acts, but will probably be creating a brand new act for this show that fits the theme. So just because he is a clown and because we've worked with him before, sorry, I'm moving my hand.
Yeah.
It'll be really easy for us to just throw him into the show and create a unique act like that, or based on the skill sets we need. For example, we have one person that we took this year who's a porter, but he doesn't work with a flyer, but we have a couple different flyers who also have their own act, so together they'll work to create something new.
So I'm going back to this first summer, like kind of like chronologically in my head, I'm thinking, so there's 7 of you guys, you have 12 days, you booked the tour without the content.
Without the content, without any marketing material, without any previous experience, without any idea what to do or how to book a theater or what we were capable of playing. I sent some emails to theaters that laughed at me. They didn't laugh at me, but they're like, that's cute. Come back when you're more established. I sent some emails to theaters that I then realized afterwards being like, oh, we could never afford that. That was a Broadway playhouse. What was I even thinking? So it was a really cool learning experience to just kind of like do it with no idea of what was going on. Now, though, there are some of those theaters that did laugh at us or send us away that we're performing at this summer. So it's kind of cool how we've grown in that sense.
That's awesome. So what did you send people if you didn't have marketing material, if you didn't have any promotional anything? What did you send?
I sent a really nice email asking really, really nicely if we could rent their theater for a day.
And what's the going rate for a theater rental, or what was the going rate for a theater rental?
It really depends on where we're performing and what we're doing. Sometimes because we are a very a versatile show in the sense that we will perform anywhere we can kind of make it happen. So our first summer we performed at one retirement home. We performed at a couple different circus schools. We performed at a couple different proper theaters. And we've paid anywhere from $500 a day to a couple thousand for performances. So it really depends on where we're performing, what the venue's like, what's included in the venue package. Do we need 7 different people running sound? Do we need 1? Do we even have anyone running sound? All that type of stuff.
Okay. And how did you fund all of that your first year?
Our first summer was actually completely crowdfunded. We raised about $5,000, I think. And then each performer had to pay we had to pay our expenses at NECA for the 2 weeks for us to house there and for us to create our show. And then after that, it was all ticket based.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really rare for an arts organization.
Circus is kind of a different beast than theater or dance or music. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between running a circus organization and running, say, a theater?
I think one of the differences is the scale or size of it. In circus, I think the new kind of era of circus is doing theatrical size circus productions, because back in the day it used to be the whole tent comes into town, the whole town stops to go help set up the tent. Or it was these giant arena tours that would be there for a week or 2 weeks at a time, or however long they could. And then I think the industry realized that those shows are harder to produce, they're harder to sustain. So there's been all these new circus companies that are producing theatrical shows because it's easier to just go to theater instead of giant arenas, because you don't have to bring a tent, you don't have to bring as many equipment, you have a smaller cast. So that's kind of the route we chose. So we're kind of a theatrical circus company. So I think the scale is different depending on what you do.
What equipment do you have or do you travel with?
Yeah, so we travel with our own sound system and all of our own audio equipment, which is really weird, and a lot of theaters get confused about the reason we do that. But we perform at so many venues that don't have sound equipment that we just bring our own, and we actually run our sound equipment ourselves from on stage because our show we don't have. There's only 10 of us on the road, so we don't have a technical director, we don't have a stage manager, we don't have any of those things. So we have to be calling the show ourselves. And it's too hard for us to teach someone all of our sound cues as well as a light cue. So we will actually go to a theater and we'll give someone our light cues, which we have two versions of our light cue. Last year we had one that had 95 light cues, and we also had one that had 3 light cues, depending on the venue we're at. So yeah, we're very adaptable and very flexible, but it's too hard to teach the sound cues to someone who doesn't know what circus is. So we're actually running the sound ourselves on stage.
Oh, wow.
That's a little fun fact that I feel like a lot of people don't know about us.
I mean, how isn't it obvious that you're on stage like hitting buttons, or is it a performer that's off stage?
It's someone off stage, and we've had to strategically block around the show so that there's always somebody able to do the sound effects and edit the music and go to the next song.
That's incredible. Do you guys travel with a truss or any kind of rigging?
With a freestanding aerial rig.
Okay.
So it's one of the tripod rigs that you can buy online. And the original reason we came up with we traveled with the rig is because going into theaters, it made our show just a lot more flexible. Like we can perform outside, we can set up anywhere. Some circus schools we go to, we use their rigging if they already have pre-established rigging points. But for us, it's just a lot easier to bring our own rig. And that way it's all of our own equipment. We do it ourselves. We don't have to climb up scaffolding and attach to a theater. We don't have to look at their rigging plots or anything. And it's just a lot easier for us to come in and out in one day and keep the setup the same and consistent.
Wow, that's so smart. So you've really set up a system in which you're entirely self-reliant.
Yes, which is awesome. And it makes theaters love working with us too, because we can do the whole show with or without them. Obviously, we love their help, and whenever they're there, it makes our show so much better. But we're really self-sustaining. We have all of our materials ready to go, so we can just walk in and hand them anything they need, and it's really smooth sailing, and it's very simple and easy.
That's really cool. Where do the performers stay, or what do you guys do for lodging? And
when we're on the road, we do a combination of staying at Airbnbs and then staying at homestays, which is our friends and family or people that we know that host us. Sometimes if we're going to a circus school, I'll send an email to the circus school and they'll blast out to their community being like, hey, there's some circus artists in town. Can anyone spare a bed or two? So it's really nice to get to travel and like meet new people, because if we were just hanging out with ourselves, we'd probably go crazy. So it's nice to like meet new people and engage in the community and meet people that you wouldn't normally meet. And it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. And super different than a lot of the experiences I've had traveling with circuses, where you're like, you go in, you do your job, and then you kind of like don't associate with the townsfolk.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like it because you just like, it's more fun than just like going back to a hotel room or going back to your place and just like sitting with people. It actually forces you to talk to people. It forces you to do activities. And also the people that we stay with are usually like, oh, you have to come try this ice cream place. And they always know the cool places to go to. So they're excited to host us. So they're always like, come on, we have to show you these things. So it's really fun.
That first summer, who directed the project?
So our first show was very ensemble based. So all 8 of us created that show together. It was led by it was headed by Liam Gunwalk, who was one of our performers that year. But it was a very ensemble-based creation process. And then in 2017, Liam actually didn't come on the road with us, and he stepped into the role of directing. And then this year, our director is Jesse Dryden, who used to direct for the Smirkus tour for a decade. So we're really thrilled to have him join our team and be a part of our project.
What do you do when you're not on tour?
When I'm not on tour right now, I'm a full-time college student. I take 6 classes a semester, and it's awful. But I'm done so soon, and I'm so excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then during the year, I also coach at Aloft Circus Arts in Chicago. And then in the fall, I work and perform with Chicago's Midnight Circus. So those keep me busy the rest of the year.
And those, your 7 can I call them company members? Do they come back every year?
Well, it's actually funny because our first year there was originally 8 of us, and then going into our second year, only 3 of the performers were the same. So we had 7 new people and 3 people that were the same. And then this year, there's 10 of us again, and 6 people are returning, and 4 people are new, but half are returning from the first year and half are returning from the second year. So we're slowly building this like ensemble and network of people that continually come back to work for this project or this company, but there's always slight variations in who's working, and some people took summers off. This year we have some people that were performers who are now working on our administrative team who want to do the tour again in the future. So it's kind of this big network of people that all work for the company, and sometimes they come on the road and sometimes they don't.
Do you have a headquarters in Chicago?
You're looking at it. It is my bedroom. It is.
It's great.
Thank you. Our admin team all works remotely. They're all in Vermont at the moment, but they're all throughout the country, and we just work throughout Skype and Google Documents and all that stuff.
As far as the content of the shows, did Liam come up with the story the first year? How did you create the theme or
the legend goes the first year is that both Liam and another performer, Sam Gerwitt, both claim they came up with it when they were driving together. I wasn't in the car. I don't know who's telling the truth. I think they both were in a sense, but together they were driving.
Probably Sam. Sam never lies. I love Sam Gerwitt. So they were both driving together, sorry.
Yeah, I got confused. They were driving home, and they were thinking of like themes for a show that had no money because we still don't have a production budget. And back then it was even smaller. And they were like, I think they were passing trash on the side of the road, and one of them was like, oh, we can use trash. And so the first year we actually drove around on the side of the road, and we got trash from the streets. We went to dumpsters, and that's what we turned our set into, and that's how we got our props. Like we had a bunch of tire swings. Like we invented an aerial tire swing apparatus that we got from the side of the road. We got a mailbox that became one of our set pieces that we'd like put stuff in. We had these gross like folding lawn chairs that we found on the side of the road that we'd sit in. So also our first year we had some live music, and we had a piano, and the stand for the piano was actually like an old ironing board, and we used milk crates as all of our chairs. So it was a very like everything from that show came from the side of the road. So it was a very like DIY circus.
It's like you're like the fresh-faced vagabond crew at Circus over here.
Right?
So cool. And how has it changed now? Have you guys stepped up your game, or you guys...
We've stepped up our game a lot, actually, looking back from the first year, and I'm really excited for the people returning from the first year to see all the changes over 2 years. The biggest way we've changed is we actually know what we're doing now. The first year, we were kind of just going with the flow and seeing what happened, and like we had no idea what to expect. It was a 4-week tour, and we had maybe 20 shows booked. This summer, we're looking at somewhere in the upper 30s, like I think around 35. And we have I know how to book a tour. Our first year, I would just say yes to any theater. So there's a lot of zigzagging. There's a lot of back crossing and backtracking. And this year we're going in one cohesive circle, which is amazing for gas and for mileage and for like not going crazy. Sanity was the word I was looking for. We have our schedule is a lot better in the sense that like it's linear, whereas before we'd have like a show, then we'd have 3 days off, and then another show. And this year we were successfully able to book shows throughout our entire run. We have one time where we have 2 days off in a row, and it's our last weekend where we did it as a break for ourselves, where we play bigger theaters. We play more proper theaters now. Most of our venues have expanded that can hold bigger capacities. We have tech riders. We have technology that we're using, so our show is better. We've also hired a real director, or not a real director, we've hired a professional director who brings a lot experience to the game, and he brings years of experience to the table, and that'll help elevate our show. And then one thing that I'm really excited about for this year is the cast in particular. We have a very high-level cast, and I think it's the highest-level cast we've had in the 3 years, so I'm really excited for us to like up our game for the show, and it's going to be a really awesome show this summer.
Can you give the audience a sneak peek into what some of the acts may be?
Yeah. For one, you've heard us talk about him a lot. His name is Sam Gerwitt. He was a trooper with us in 2016, and he is one of the best clowns I know. He is phenomenal, and he we have some, I don't want to give anything away about his clowning, but he has some pretty awesome bits so far that are going to be amazing. We also have juggler Delaney Bayless. She's currently studying at Circadium in Philadelphia, and she holds a couple world records in juggling. She won the IJA overall world champion in 2016. And so she's incredible to watch perform. She was in our show last year. So if you saw us last year, she's coming back, and we're thrilled to have her. And then one of the acts I'm really looking forward to is the hand balancing act. We have a trio handstand act, and none of them, we're bringing in a handstand duo and a solo hand balancer and having them work together. The duo is comprised of Marika Daly and Lindsay Barrows, who have spent the year training in Vermont at the New England Center for Circus Arts, and then a solo hand balancer whose name is Justin, who graduated from the National Center for Circus Arts in London last year. So we have 3 very high-level hand balancers that'll all be coming together to create a brand new act, and I'm very excited to see that as well.
Cool. And what's the name of the show?
The show this summer is called Starstruck, A Cosmic Circus, and it's about space and planets and astrology and celebrities and humanity, and it's really awesome. It's a combination of all those things. How do they all fit together? I'm not sure, but they do. And
that's Jesse's job. He'll figure it out.
He has it figured out. I just don't want to give too much away.
Oh, okay. This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen! Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show. As the runner, producer, what would you call your title, your formal title at Circus?
During the year, I call myself the executive director because I kind of wear all the hats and I kind of do all the things, and I do the marketing, I do the tour routing, I do the budgeting, I do all that. And then during the summer, I call myself the tour manager. So my job is getting the group and getting the show from point A to point B on time and making sure that everyone's alive and healthy and doing well during those times. Because on the road, there's also someone else takes over the marketing, someone else takes over social media, someone else takes over being the assistant director, someone takes over the job of being like the cast liaison that keeps everyone together. And then we also have people that are in charge of like concessions and doing merchandise sales. So everyone kind of has another administrative duty along as being a performer.
Oh, so these are all, in addition to performing, they also have these other jobs.
Yeah. Most of the jobs are pretty like, it goes along with being a performer. It's like, oh, my job is after I'm done setting up, I then set up all the merchandise table. So it's all relatively simple, you know? It's not like anyone's doing anything crazy along with being a performer.
What's your favorite job to do or your favorite hat to wear during the off season?
I really like booking the tour. It's really fun to kind of play that role and to kind of, because that's really a puzzle and trying to get that all to come together and being like, okay, this theater can have us this week, that theater can have us this week. and trying to pick out how we'll drive and how we'll navigate through all the different venues, and making sure we hit all the different markets and making sure we space out enough distance between the two venues that we're playing. And so that's a really fun puzzle. And then I think the other one is casting the show. It's a really hard process. Casting is I actually cried 4 times during the casting process. But afterwards, it's really fun when we start doing the basic writing of the show and figuring out who's doing what and starting to get the glimpses of what the show will look like. That's always a really fun part for me because I get to see all the work I've been doing over the years starts to pay off.
Talk a little bit more about the casting process. What made you cry?
So this year was our first year we held auditions. The first year I asked 7 people and they all said yes. The next year we had a couple people reach out to me and me reaching out to other people, but this year we had an audition. It wasn't an open audition, but I posted a casting call in one of our Facebook groups, and then I said, share this with people you think would be a good fit for our company. And we actually got 25 applications for 10 spots, but I'm one of those spots for 9 spots. So it was really a hard casting process, especially because a lot of people had been on the road with Cirque US before, and because they were all friends of us and had gotten that casting call, they were all extremely qualified, all exactly what we wanted, all perfect candidates to come on tour. And we had to say, I had to talk a lot of what does this specific show need? How can we rotate through some acts so we're not showing our audiences the same things every single year? How can we, and then at the same time, how do we keep that core ensemble work and who's worked together before? So it was a very hard process because I could have taken any of those 25 people and we could have had an amazing show. It's just a hard process. And the reason it was just hard because at one point I had 5 different casts laid out in front of me and I was like, all of these would be great casts, and you just never know.
Could you ever double cast? Now I'm trying to problem solve for you. I'm like, well, clearly you need to do a Southeastern tour and a Northwestern tour.
That's our plan for this year because I graduate on Saturday. I haven't mentioned if I'm graduating or not yet. I haven't mentioned that enough, but I'm graduating soon. So
Doug, are you graduating?
I am actually this week.
What? This week?
This week.
You're graduating?
Yeah.
How about that?
But after I graduate, I will have so much more time and I won't be forced to live in one place anymore. So our plans moving forward for the 2019 season is to actually offer more shows throughout the year. Right now, we've kind of been doing, as it's worked, we've done our summer tour and then we've done a benefit show in Boston, which has grown in popularity as well. And we do that in the middle of the winter. So I'm hoping to offer some sort of winter tour this year. We're hoping that after we complete our summer tour with this show Starstruck, that we're going to be able to send it to another market, maybe do a West Coast tour. We're looking at a Midwest tour. So that's the ball's rolling, and there's a couple different things on the table right now. So we're going to try to expand so that we're more of a year-round company and not just a seasonal company. And that way we'll be able to hire more people and be able to work with everyone.
And how do you pay your artists?
They get paid per show.
Okay.
Is that the question? Or
well, I'm just thinking because they have so many other jobs, right? They're not just on stage. They're doing merchandise or they're doing social media. Do you take into account those hours, or how do you
right now, because we're still such a small company, there's a lot of labor of love that goes into it, and a lot of times it's that's just kind of how it has to work in the arts industry, and those are kind of the people we want to work with. I don't want someone who just wants to come in, clock out, do their act, then leave, because on a company that's on the road together, we're not just performers, we're a family. And the word that someone put it in last year is you're a performer for 4 hours a day, and then you're a human being for the other 20. So it's really about who you want to be around and be a part of that. And a lot of people in our company really want this company to succeed, and we're really invested into it. And most of these tasks don't take up that much time. It's maybe an additional hour every day. It's already while we're doing something else. It's oh, I just finished setting up the set. Now I'm going to set up the merchandise. Or, oh, I just set up. I'm going to go to the front and take a picture and post on Instagram. So it's nothing too strenuous or too crazy. And then, so at the moment, all those extra things are just included as expectations of being a performer for this company.
And what's the age range of the performers in your company?
I think our youngest is 19, turning 20, like barely 19, and then our oldest this summer is 25. So you have to be over 18 to work with us.
I'm so fascinated by you, Doug, because you made this, what I consider to be a very mature choice to go to school to study arts and business or arts administration, arts and business.
Business of live performing arts. So yeah, all
business of live performing arts.
Yeah.
Instead of going the performer route, how did you come to that decision?
Good question. It was a really hard choice to make. It was a very, like, my whole life, I dreamed of being a professional performer, and that's like the route I wanted to be in. And I never, like, if you had asked me when I was 17, I had no intention of going to college. I actually only applied to 2 schools, and because my parents were like, we will disown you if you don't apply to college. I was like, fair. And I'm so glad they did. I'm so glad I went to college. I'm so glad. If you're listening to this, Mom and Dad, thank you. But it was a really hard choice. I had just spent an entire year in the middle of a small town in Vermont, and I was one of the youngest in my program, so I kind of felt very out of place at this circus school. Or not out of place, but I felt like it wasn't the perfect fit for me. And then I kind of had this idea of like, oh, well, I could continue to audition for schools, I could continue to audition for shows, and I could never get casted, and I could spend a bunch of my life auditioning for things and auditioning and sending in materials and never getting casted. Or I could create my own venue and I could create my own platform for me to perform on. And that's kind of where it started as originally. That was the like 19-year-old ego in me being like, oh, I want to perform. And now it's expanded past that. It's like, now this company is what I want to do, like even more than performing. Like I want this company to have a long life, and I want many, many shows, and I want to put as many amazing artists on stage as I can. And it's less about like me wanting to perform. Obviously that's still a part of it now, but that's where it started. And then I thought also that there is a market for circus producers and circus directors and circus administrators in the United States. I know there's been a lot of conversations about that at like Echo festivals and at like Circus Talk, and now there's all these different platforms for trying to create those conversations. But there's not that many people who like are producing circus in the United States, and so many people are like, there's not enough jobs, there's so many performers but not jobs. So I was like, oh, maybe my role is to create those jobs for people.
I love that.
Great.
That's great. I love that you love that. What do you think it was the most useful class you took?
Ooh. Well, my freshman year, I took a class that was called Business of the Performing Arts. So it was the class, and it was kind of the intro to my major. I think that one, because I actually entered school as a theater major, and I was going to minor in business administration, and then I switched after taking this class. So I think that was probably the most important of, like, it inspired me. But I think just like, it was the first time I was being asked to think of a show from a business standpoint and from a box office standpoint and from the customer experience and not as a performer. And it just kind of opened my eyes to all this detail and all this work that I had no idea was even happening behind the scenes, that I was not even aware of. And it really was just like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, I can do that. Like, I can organize a show schedule. And then also the really cool thing is being a performer is I know what performers like. I know what performers want. And I also know what business people want and what they want. So I feel like I have this nice little middle ground. So like sometimes I'm able to look at my cast and be like, hey, this thing isn't ideal, but for the business, it's really ideal. And sometimes as someone who's running the business, I can be like, oh, this isn't ideal for my business, but the cast will really like this. So it's really cool that I can play both those roles while planning a tour.
Can you give an example of something that would be really good for the business that the cast doesn't always like?
Sometimes theater rentals are by the hour. So sometimes it'll be like, we'll arrive there, we'll set up, we'll warm up, we'll set up, we'll do tech, we'll do warm up, we'll do a show, we tear down and we're out, and there's no really break, and we'll do a really long day. And that's something where we're saving the money on rent, and it's doable for the cast. We can do it. We're not like stressing ourselves out. It's just not ideal. And then sometimes we go places where we set up in the morning, we tech in the morning, we have the afternoon off, we'll go explore the town, we can train if we want to, someone can take a nap backstage, and that's really ideal for the cast because it's very like relaxed and easy. And then the cast likes it and the company doesn't have to pay more money. So it's kind of those balances.
And what are the decisions you've made that may not be good for the business but are great for the performers?
Like one of those examples I was talking about a little bit earlier is we have those 2 days in a row that are off. And what we do is we go to a lake house in the middle of Vermont and we just have like a relaxing vacation for 1 day. And as a business, we should be doing a show that day. We should be monopolizing our time better. We should be doing some sort of promotional thing, but it's one of those things that's like, oh, the cast deserves a day off. They should take the day off. So that type of stuff.
How do you guys do your marketing? You mentioned social media.
Yep, social media is a big part. Marketing is one of the biggest things that we struggle with at the moment because marketing is so expensive. And as you've guessed from our conversations about how we used to drive down the street and pick up trash off the road, we don't have huge marketing budgets. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is social media. A lot of it is word of mouth. We try to get as many printed advertisements as we can that we can afford out. And then also we've done things, we try to get really creative in our marketing. There's a lot of times where we've just stood on street corners in cities and handed out flyers for our show and done impromptu street performances. Last year was the first time we kind of had a marketing team in the sense that we were able to like film a lot of trailers. We were able to film some backstage stuff and get things done that way. And then like it's a lot of just contacting the press, inviting press to see our shows, trying to get newspapers to cover it, trying to get anyone to come see our show that'll then promote it to someone else. The really awesome thing is just about that how we're fortunate too is that all circus companies or all theatrical performance companies take time to grow. And it's really hard for a startup company to just be like, hey, we're going to do this big tour. We want to attract all these people and they're going to come see us. So the route we kind of chose is we're doing smaller venues, we're doing smaller cities, and we're growing a fan base and we're growing people that are coming back to us year after year. And that's kind of the key to marketing for us is that we keep going back to the same places that know and love us. Like, for example, there's some places that I already know right now will sell out. They'll sell out a couple weeks before, and that's a really awesome feeling. There's already people emailing us being like, when are your tickets coming on sale? We don't want to miss our chance to see it. Like, so that's really awesome. And just kind of the growth we've experienced just from people seeing us that first year to the second year was incredible. So we're hoping that all those people come back, they tell their friends and family. So really word of mouth is one of the best things you can do in an arts industry is you need to get people in to see your show because once they see it once, they're going to like you and they're going to keep coming back. Totally. So we do things by some of our marketing is I go to people and I'm like, hey, you guys can get really cheap tickets. Come on through. And then they end up going and bringing a bunch of people. So like we do a lot of camp shows. We do a lot of retirement home shows for free just to try to get ourselves out there and get people seeing the work we do and being like, hey, that's really cool. I want to go see their full show.
When you sit down to book a tour, are you thinking in terms of financials? Are you saying my goal is to make this X amount of dollars this year, or is your goal to play X amount of shows? How do you goal set for tour?
My goal is the number of shows or the venues or the locations kind of. Like there's some places that I know I want to go back to every year and then filling in the map from there. This year was actually the best I think I did in booking a tour because I booked all the weekends first and I booked them all in our major cities or major locations that we'll do really well in. And then I filled in the travel destinations after that, which I didn't do the first 2 years. And this is the way I'll be doing it for the rest of time. And then this goes back to one question you asked me earlier of like, what was a really useful class? My other one was called booking. One thing that I learned in that class that our teacher told me is that when you look at a season, when you're looking at a show, you can't look at it as an individual show. You have to look at it as a season. Because there are some shows right now that I know we're going to go into and I know we won't break even. I know we won't make a lot of money. I know we won't profit. And there's other shows that I know we will profit so well that it'll cover the expenses at those other places. And the reason I book those other places is because sometimes the like intangible benefits there are so great that we have to do those shows. Whether they're a social circus program where they can't really afford to bring in our show. So we're kind of just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And we love performing for kids especially circus communities and just people where we know that our show will have a lasting impression. That's a lot more than just doing a show. That's really important to me. And that's really one of our like main goals as a company. And then other times going to shows, going to a venue. This happened actually twice this summer where we went to a venue and we didn't sell out last year, but we had such a good show and the audience that was there was so well received that the theater then contacted us this year and bought out our show. So they're actually now, instead of us renting the theater, they're paying us a flat fee to come in and do the show. They now handle all the marketing because they already have the connections and establishment to that connections with the community. So we just need to come in, do our show, and it's a win-win for both organizations. So sometimes I'll book shows knowing I won't profit the first year, but knowing that in 2, 3, 4 years down the line, this could be a very profitable market. And also that we'll be building those connections and really like growing our audience base that way.
And how do you set up long-term goals? Do you have kind of your 5-year, 10-year map? Or are you just like, we'll see what happens after I graduate? Because you're graduating, right?
Yeah, I'm graduating.
Cool.
It was kind of a 3-year plan, which was from year 1 until graduation. And then I think the plan at the moment is to sit down at the end of the summer with our administrative team, with the directors, with our financial people, and really start to make the next few years plan out. I have a couple different ideas of what I want to do. And I know that the summer tour, the East Coast summer tour, will always be the core and the staple of this company. How will that grow and evolve? Who knows? But for a long time, I was explaining it as like, oh, the first 2 summers are kind of our training wheel summers. And then this 3rd summer, which we're about to go into, is like the real one, the real deal. Like that's the one where we're going to try to get our name out there. We're going to try to like really establish ourselves as a circus company in the United States. So at the moment, everything I've been doing has been getting us to this point and then successfully getting us through the summer. And then there is the plan to sit down and make out the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, and all that.
What would be like if you were given $1 million tomorrow for the company, what would be the dream goal?
If I was given $1 million, the dream goal would be a tented tour. But
yes.
That's so far away in our life. Ideally, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a system where we create a show, it goes on tour on the East Coast in the summer, then it probably takes like a month or 2 off. It goes on a West Coast tour in the winter, takes a month or 2 off, goes on another tiny tour somewhere else, takes a month or 2 off, and then a new show would get created each summer for the summer tour. That would ideally be the thing, or ideally being like a small production company that has 1 or 2 shows touring at the same time. But I think the main staple is like I'd really like to develop the East Coast summer tour to be like creates a show in May, tours June, July, and August, and tours the entire East Coast instead of just the like New England and northern East Coast. So I think that's the first project we're going to go for.
I love that. So where can people find you online? Where can people get tickets to the show?
Yeah.
Where can people see all the stuff they need to see?
All the stuff. They should probably head to our website for everything. That's www.thecirqueus.com. So TheCirqueus.com. That has our full tour schedule. It has all of our cast information. It has information on workshops and other performances we do throughout the summer. We offer a bunch of workshops where we perform as well. We also have different information on like sponsorships, how to book a show. If you want to bring like a circus artist to your next event, we do all that type of stuff. So they can find that all out through our website. And then if you want to find us on Facebook, we're on Facebook at Cirque US. We're on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter at The Cirque US. And then we are also on YouTube, where you can see promo videos and trailers and all that type of, you can see what we do. And then all of our tickets go on sale on May 15th for our entire tour.
Cool. Who handles all of that? I'm
Me.
like so do you sleep?
No. I'm also so I would say on the tour, I'm the tour manager / box office manager. So I handle all ticket sales, I staff the box offices at all the shows. I get all the ushers. I organize all the ticket takers and all that as well. But that I loop under tour management.
So the final question of this part of the interview, and it's such a funny one for me to be asking you because I feel like you're at the beginning of your career, like you're 3 years into this. What advice would you give Doug Stewart at the beginning of Doug Stewart's journey with Cirque US?
Well, one lesson that we taught our school has like 6 mottos or something, and I totally forget what they all are. But the first one is go before you're ready. And I think that's exactly what we did and the kind of approach I took to doing this. And I remember the first year, there were times where I was like I would write out an email, and I was too scared to hit send because I knew the answer was going to be like no or probably not or something else. And I would be like, go before you're ready. And I'd hit the send email. And then sometimes I'd get a response. I was like, yeah, we can do that. Let's talk. And so like, I think I nailed that aspect of like the do it before you're ready. And that's still like one motto that I live by, which is kind of working. And advice for myself, I think I wish I had known to what I was talking about earlier is you don't need to break even on every single show and look at it as a season. Because there were some times where I remember it was our third show, our first year, and we played this beautiful 900-seat theater. It was gorgeous. It was air-conditioned. It was state-of-the-art. And we had 25 people in the audience. And all 25 were my friends. So about 10 of them paid for tickets. And the other 10 were like, well, I guess more paid for tickets. But like half of the 25 were like our volunteers or ushers, like people that were just hanging out with us for the day that helped us set up. So we took a massive like financial loss on that, and I was like so heartbroken, but then I was like, oh, we did amazing at all the shows on both ends of that. It doesn't matter. So like that it's okay that sometimes you'll make mistakes, sometimes you won't break even, but in the long run, as long as you can budget for the season correctly, you're good.
Would you have still played that show?
If I knew that we wouldn't have that we were only going to sell 20 tickets, definitely not. But looking back, I'm glad we did. Like it was a good learning experience for sure.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have going into it. Also, or anything. And I think circus teaches you that, right? Like that, like you're just going to fail over and over again until you do it right. So
yeah. And that's like really, that's really like, I want what the core values of circus to be is I feel like there's so many big theatrical companies and big touring companies that are very much like businesses. And they're very much, we are in this to make a profit. We are in this to make money. And that's like not at all what I want this company to be. I want this to be like, I want the core values of circus of like, you will learn and you will fail and it'll be hard and you'll struggle and you have to fight for what you want. Like, I want that to be like the very essence of what this company is, not only through our shows and through our work, but as a business and as everything we're doing, you know?
Do you see it as always being a cast of emerging artists or younger people?
That is I get that question a lot and I don't know. At the moment, that's kind of the way it's worked out because that's just who we've been able to get. That's who's available. That's who's interested in doing this kind of work of like I said earlier, like, hey, you're going to come on the road with us. And also you're going to run the box office. And also you're going to be in charge of that. So some high level circus artists don't want those extra responsibilities, which is totally cool. But then maybe that we're not for that artist either, you know? So we're kind of establishing like hey, we're a different type of company. We're a different experience. You're not just going to clock in and clock out. And if you want that, that's awesome. I like doing that when I perform for other companies. Like I love going to a gig and not having to worry about ticket sales and not having to worry about anything. But there's also like an extra sense of pride of like doing all of it yourself. And I know that a lot of our cast members feel that pride as well. Like we really like took this show on the road and it wasn't like some administrative team we don't know organizing everything for us. It was like, we did it all ourselves, which is a really awesome feeling.
That's awesome. What are the dates of the tour? Because I'm coming back to the States.
Oh, you are?
The Artist Athlete is doing so well, and moving to Germany at the same time that I'm launching a business was like, I mean, I bought the ticket and decided to do it before I launched the business. So
yeah,
I kind of was just like, whatever, I can do it all. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, I can't do it all. So maybe I'll come up and see you guys. That would be super fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Our training starts on June 1st, so that's when we get to NECA. Our tour opens on June 21st at NECA, and then we tour until August 6th.
35 venues in
I think
a month?
It's 35 shows in 6 weeks. I think it's 15 venues, because sometimes we do 2 or 4 shows per place we go to.
Gotcha. How many shows per day? Do you have a max?
The max is 2. Yeah.
Wow. Cushy. Would you rather live forever or die tomorrow?
I think live forever.
Yeah?
There's just so much I want to do, you know? Like, it's going to take a while to get us to afford a tent. Like, I need time.
That's true. You can't die tomorrow after all you've, like...
Yeah, right?
You've come this far. Plus, you're graduating. You can't die before you graduate. You are graduating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank God.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Doug.
Thanks for having me back. Thank you so much for doing all this.
My pleasure. That was my interview with Doug Stewart. Doug is doing such great work with Cirque US, and it was such a pleasure to have him on the show. He has so many great tips on how to run a circus. And I want to talk today about how, if you are an individual artist, you could apply these strategies to your own career. Because so often I hear artists wishing they had more business advice. So I wrote down 3 points that I think we can take away from this interview. First of all the Cirque US shows are entirely self-sufficient. Everything from sound cues to rigging to even the merchandising is all done by the company of performers. This keeps costs low and puts less demand on the theaters that are hosting them. Additionally, Cirque US has more control of their product. That is, what goes on stage, what people see. As an individual artist, you should also try to be as self-sufficient as possible. Provide your own costumes and a couple of different ways your music can be accessed, especially for a one-time gig or an audition. You should always be ready with your own equipment, and if your act requires someone to pull you if you're an aerialist, practice with someone and bring them with you to the gig or audition rather than hoping a stagehand can do it and teaching them last minute. Trust me, I've seen that. It doesn't usually end very well. But by being self-sufficient, you're showing that you are prepared, easy to work with, and you will feel more confident that you are showing your best self on stage because you aren't reliant on all the variables that are beyond your control. The second thing Doug does that I think is really smart is that he looks at booking his shows through a really wide lens. Let's listen in.
When you're looking at a show, you can't look at it as an individual show. You have to look at it as a season.
Doug focuses on booking a whole season, which in this case could be defined as the total number of shows performed, rather than evaluating each individual show on whether or not it's making money. As a result of this approach, Cirque US chooses to do things like play at theaters that may not turn a profit, or Doug can give his cast 2 days off to go hang out at a lake house in Vermont. These kinds of choices are smart because they come with what I like to think of as intangible benefits, or things that can help the business in a way that may not immediately be quantifiable. For example, Doug may book a show somewhere that does not make the company money, but it increases the exposure of his company to new audiences, which may create opportunities in subsequent years. In the example of giving a small vacation to his performers, Doug is helping the morale of his company, and he's building in rest days. Giving the cast a few days to rest can prevent injury, which would mean canceling dates, recasting, or taking extra time and energy to rework the show, all of which are pretty expensive endeavors. Likewise, you can take this wide lens approach to your career as an individual artist, and that can help you examine how to take advantage of intangible benefits. You can justify performing for free every once in a while, or even paying to perform at a reputable festival. Even if you don't make money showing your art, you may get noticed by a casting agent, or meet other performers who can connect you with more work. Or you can see the benefit of taking a rest day, because it will cost you far more if you go to the studio and get injured than the benefits of squeezing in an extra day of running your act. So instead of thinking day to day, try to step back and look at your time through a whole 3 months or even half a year. Examine what your schedule looks like and how to build in these intangible benefits. How much time are you dedicating to training, act creation, working on skills, making new contacts? And this applies not only to artists who are looking for work, but people who have work. It's really easy when you're on contract to sleep until noon, watch a movie, grab a coffee, then you go to the theater, and you do this day after day. But how much attention are you paying to your mental health and your personal life and personal projects? How much are you exposing yourself to new avenues of inspiration or education? No matter if you're working or not, taking the time to look at your schedule broadly, to examine where you can make space for opportunities with intangible benefits, can really help you in your artistic career. The last point Doug shared, maybe without even realizing it, was when he said that he saw this need in the market for circus producers and took it upon himself to get the education necessary to learn the business side of what goes into producing live art. The Greek philosopher Aristotle once wrote that a successful career lies at the intersection of your talent and the needs of society. I can't remember where I read that, but I really struggled with that last part for a long time. The needs of society. Like, it's obvious if your talent is in science and medicine, people will get sick, so you can be a doctor. Or if your talent is creating amazing food to eat, society gets hungry, so boom, be a chef. But if you're me, well, how does a society need a buff girl who can do splits on tissue and spin really fast from one arm? The more I give these interviews and listen to people who have made careers with their talents in circus, what I think is that it's up to us as artists to create that intersection, because sometimes society doesn't overtly ask for what it needs. Philip Tigris, my guest from episode 8, showed the European cabaret scene they needed a male contortionist. Carrie Heller from episode 5 showed the therapy world that circus was a way to help kids with developmental disorders. And Liza Rose from episode 2 is regularly collaborating with artists to create shows that entertain around the world. So, instead of wondering how society needs you, you need to show society that they need you. Because I believe that society does need circus artists in all sorts of wonderful ways. Society just doesn't know it yet. For more information about Doug Stewart and Cirque US, including information on this year's tour dates, you can visit their website, www.thecirqueus.com. And as for me, as always, I'm at www.theartistathlete.com, on Instagram at @the_artist_athlete, and Facebook, The Artist Athlete. Next week on the show, I'll share my interview with someone who exemplifies showing society what they need through her work as a circus artist. Laura Stokes from the Ricochet Project will be here. I'll see you guys then.